You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface of music and tech. I'm your host, Dmitri Vietze. I'm also the founder and CEO of Rock, Paper, Scissors, a PR firm that focuses on music tech. And we started the Music Tectonics conference back in 2019 in October, and we were going to do it again this year in LA as well, but we ended up moving it online. But when we were leading up to the first conference, I was doing a lot of meetups in Los Angeles, and I did one. You may have heard the episode where I recorded a podcast live where I went through the seismic shift trading cards, talking about all the seismic shifts in the music industry, and recorded some interaction with some folks at a meetup where I presented that. And I, during that conversation, came up and actually pitched this idea because I started talking about monetizing fandom. And I pitched the idea that someone should make an independent marketplace for emotes and other digital merch or whatever that you could use across platforms. Obviously, you can see those things being used in places like Twitch and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. But I thought, wouldn't it be really cool if there was a marketplace where you could plop your money down and then use that stuff anywhere? Well, there's a guy in the audience there named Duran Davis Jr. from a company called Lav Labs. I hadn't met him. He just showed up at the meetup, and we got him on mic. You can actually hear him on one of the podcast episodes. And he was building on an interesting platform that was really focused on monetizing fandom and getting more interaction from fans in the music streaming experience. So we put together a panel that you may have been to at the Shock Before the Quake. Duran was there. We had Danny Deal, the DJ and music tech writer and public speaker, and we had Grant Dexter from Finapoli. But I thought we really needed a representative from somebody that was already monetizing fandom. And the one company that I could think of that I thought would be perfect for this, because they're really doing it, they have traction, is Cameo. And we brought on Matt Devine, who's the head of music partnerships from Cameo. And then the worst thing that could happen for an online event, we had tech problems, but only for Matt. Everyone else we could hear. And I still want to hear about Cameo. So I have got with me today Matt Devine from Cameo in LA. Matt, how are you doing?
Great, man. Yeah, thanks. I'm having a little like PTSD from that story.
Oh,
Joking, but no, man. I'm honestly just kicking back, enjoying the sound of your voice. Pretty. It's like
thanks, Matt.
Very smooth.
Thanks, man. Well, it's really kind of a cool full circle story, because literally when I go out into the world, LA, New York, Chicago, wherever, and do meetups around music tech, you never know what kind of ideas you're going to come across. And it was literally like, as I was talking through this stuff, that this conversation came up, and it took me a minute to realize that you guys were already there doing this stuff. But let's just start straight from the start. How do you describe Cameo to someone who's never heard of it?
Yeah, I mean, it is essentially it's a platform, it's an app where fans can go to pay for short little personalized video messages from their heroes, from celebrities. So it's we've got over 42,000 celebrities across all different verticals right now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and music is my lane, but of course it extends to everything from athletes, YouTubers, movie stars, anyone with a big enough following, really. And yeah, the talent set their own price, anywhere from free all the way up to around, I think our highest price right now is for Caitlyn Jenner, who's $2,500. But the sort of mean prices around right now, I think it's hovering around like $50-$75. So for that, the talent is agreeing to at their convenience, they have 4 days to do it, but essentially they're going to make a quick little low-fi, low production value, chill, authentic, personalized little video greeting, personalized to you. So 85% of them are bought as gifts. So the sort of like archetypal Cameo request would be, hey, Kenny G, my wife and I danced to your song at our wedding 10 years ago. It's our anniversary next week. Would you please tell Crystal that her husband loves her? So people who aren't necessarily familiar with Cameo per se are probably like casually familiar with it, and that they've probably seen it before. Maybe they've seen friends who've gotten them as gifts. We just we just completed our millionth and a half, would you say, like 1,500,000th Cameo. And yeah,
Nice.
generally, I mean, the sort of beauty of the whole thing is just what it means to the fans when they get them, as you can imagine. So
Right.
I think someone like you, someone like me, my background in music and our network, we may happen to be probably a phone call or two away from getting access to a lot of these talent if we needed to. But for, I'd say 99% of the rest of the world, it's getting access is really tough. They're kind of relegated to hassling them on DMs, which are never seen, or emailing some general manager's inbox that's kind of ignored routinely. So this is the sort of, it just means a lot to these fans when they get them. And that also makes my job a lot more fun because I'm, I mean, not to sound like a wuss, but I cry quite a bit when I see these. We have like reaction videos now. Some huge fan of Michael Franti gets, he'll say something just really personal and endearing to one of his biggest fans, and I get to see them scream and run around the house and cry. And generally, the fans, they'll watch these things hundreds of times. They'll share them on their own personal socials, and we say each one of these is a billboard for the next one. So if you deliver one to if you're a talent who delivers one, goes a little bit above and beyond for the fan, like it gets out there, and there's no better content out there in the world than you being magnanimous and thoughtful and showing how much you love your fans. So yeah, and for the talent, it's the average length of these things is only 30 seconds. So you can imagine how Snoop Dogg earned $2 million in his first year is really, I think, totals out to, on average, only maybe 5 minutes a day of his time. So for the talent,
wait, he made $2 million from Cameo?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
And it's pretty astounding because, it's, the requests come in, they know that it's a fan, obviously a huge fan. They know it's going to mean a lot to them. They know if they set their price accordingly, that it's money that really adds up quickly. And, we're seeing them just kind of bake it into their lifestyle now. So in his case, he'll, I hope I'm not telling any tales out of school, but he'll like go light up a joint and go kick it in his backyard after dinner and knock out, 10 messages in 5 minutes. And that's how he pays to hit that number. So it's really convenient, fun, cool for the talent. And yeah, especially post COVID, it's probably the best way, kind of closest thing they have now that no one's touring, to really touching the hearts of your fans in a way that's just so special and authentic to them.
Yeah, it's cool. You guys have like unitized, modularized this experience that normally would just be super rare because it would be such an awkward conversation. First of all, does anyone have bandwidth to have a conversation? Can you shoot a quick video for my fiance or my friend or whatever? How much do I charge for that? Wait, is that a thing? Do you even charge for that thing? Are they asking for a favor? What's going on here? And it's just very direct. It's, you know exactly what it is. You know what you're getting, you know what you're paying. And there's a CRM that manages it all.
Dude, exactly. I mean, I always thought of it. The reason why it just clicked with me, I read about it in a New York Times article 2.5 years ago when there were only, maybe 10 people at the company and maybe 1,000 talent. It was really in the nascent days, but I relate so much to both sides of that equation because as an artist myself, I toured for 10 years. I have a sort of dwindling but existing cult fan base from my from my band, and everything that we achieved was through being accessible and knowing how much that relationship with those fans matters and how you can't take it for granted and how little it takes. And you can kind of get into a little hairy space as you described where you're like, okay, is it okay to charge you? Now what? Am I going to give you my personal email address or my Venmo? Like, it gets awkward. And so, but also from the fan side, that's, look, if you are an artist and you have 15 minutes a day, say, of course you'd like to spend that with your biggest fans and the fans that deserve it the most, but if you are one of those fans, how do you stand out? How do you raise your hand higher and get that attention that you deserve? And honestly, it's awkward for a fan to, okay, wait, I'll wait until you may happen to be on tour near my city, and then I'll pay $400 to get a quick picture with you, but I'm shaking and I don't really connect with you. You know, it's kind of an assembly line. And otherwise, yeah, what are they doing? They're calling in favors wherever they can, or they're just blowing up your DMs. And it's funny because artists used to say, pushback that we got in the early days for Cameo was artists saying, look, I can just respond to my fans' DMs. We're like, yeah, but you don't. You just don't. Nobody does. It's impossible. So, if by adding that transaction, that fee, honestly, that's a service to everybody.
Yeah. Hey, so how did Cameo get started, Matt?
It started about 4.5 years ago out of Chicago. So the three founders, all went to Duke together. A couple of them worked at LinkedIn. They were in tech. One of them was actually he was an athlete, an agent for athletes, and he was interestingly the first ever Cameo which was like I think the big light bulb moment for those guys was I think it was like a second string kicker from the Seattle Seahawks, and as a gift for an exec at Nike, one of the founders got him to make a quick video in his car while he's driving, and he's like, and we call this the first Cameo ever, but it's basically him just saying like, hey, what's up, Tom? Congratulations. I heard, you just had a son, James. This is Cash from the Seattle Seahawks. I heard you're a huge fan. If your son is half as athletic as his old man, he'll be on the Seahawks one day himself, just 10 seconds, shot it out. And that, the recipient of that Cameo of that video said, just, he blew up the founders and said, look, this is the best. It's like, money is no object for me. And this video, this 10-second free video is maybe the best gift I've ever gotten in my entire life. It means so much to me, I can't even tell you. So that was the big light bulb. So for talent, obviously it's not that big a lift, but the payoff is emotionally is massive.
Yeah, cool. What are the most popular types of celebrities on Cameo?
That's interesting. It's kind of evolved over time, and this is a credit to the founders before I was even part of the team. But unlike, I think what I would have chosen to do is probably begin with my dream scenario that is only the coolest of the cool artists, or they're the first talent, but they went to where the fans were and where the talent were the most receptive and enthusiastic for it. So in the early days, when I came on, music, for example, was super underrepresented. I think it was just like Tommy Lee and Sean Kingston were kind of on it, like under duress, but really reality stars were taking off. Drag queens were taking off. YouTubers were taking off. So that I think there were certain verticals in the early days that really, were the tip of the spear. But these days it feels, it's a lot more balanced. So within music, I can say, to zoom in a little further, certain genres within music have taken off at different paces, which is really amazing to see. So hip hop, for example, was got a big lift when Snoop joined, and Ice-T and Ice Cube and some of the big like godfathers of that lane. And then we started seeing some of the cooler, edgier indie guys, and then cut to today, and hip hop is just has like a serious presence. So it's fun to just look at the roster, and each week it's like, oh, Talia Yahweh just came on, 24 Golden just came on, Dex, NLE Choppa, Fetty Wap, Lupe Fiasco, and Wu-Tang Clan, and everything in between. So we saw something similar with country, rock, sort of like heritage artists crush on Cameo. Michael Bolton just went live today. He's expected to do really well, especially based on what Kenny G's been doing the last few weeks. EDM is kind of slow to pick up, so I'm just kind of keeping an eye on that. I'd love to see more DJs. Um, you know, Motown artists do well. It's crazy. Smokey Robinson is is killing it. Kids artists, comedy, indie cred, punk, emo. Actually, my old world was with Ronnie Radke as one of the first talent ever on Cameo. It was a big head start in emo, and that was, I hope your listeners know what emo is, but
Yeah,
but
I think so.
that was kind of like, that wasn't surprising to me because I know that's the sort of culture and lifestyle that I know best, and I just know those
Mhm.
fans are the most rabid. Those are the ones that get the tattoos and buy every shirt and every album. So it was a natural fit for me to see like emo and punk take off. But then yeah, like hipsters, Lily Allen, Flaming Lips, like Bad Sons, Imogen Heap,
Wow.
Kathleen Hanna, some of these people that I always expected to be, or maybe they are, but it's knowing their brands. They're the kind of last usually to adopt something that's popular and um, you know trendy, and so I see that as just such a strong indicator when those tastemakers are not just coming on, but like really owning it.
I want to get it more into your role and your background. You mentioned a couple things, and I think it'd be cool for people to hear that. But before we do that, you mentioned Snoop Dogg doing really well. What other types of musicians are driving a significant amount of income from Cameo? Any other big numbers, or just surprises, or folks who wouldn't have expected Cameo to become their primary revenue stream, but now it is?
Oh yeah, I mean, specific to music or across the board.
Yeah, music. Let's talk music.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Ice T, Flavor Flav, Riff Raff, like those are, if I were to sort of design or sort of like reverse engineer the archetype of the highest performing artists on Cameo, it's generally artists who have such a strong identifiable persona, where there's,
Mm-hmm.
if you want Riff Raff, like him or not, if Riff Raff is to your taste or not to your taste, you can definitely appreciate that there is only one Riff Raff. And if you're a fan, for better or worse, but honestly, like, I've grown to appreciate what goes into building a personal brand. So it's like that's where
It's basically teeth work and tattoos, right?
you know what it is? It's like owning your lane, not apologizing for it, like tripling down for it, tripling down on it, and being really consistent. So I think some of my favorite bands that are obscure, one of the reasons they maybe are obscure is because they've reinvented themselves, never, maybe too much.
Mm.
So I hail peeps like Riff Raff who also not just, they don't just like lean into their own brand, but and their fan base, but they don't really take on new projects unless they're really able to have a sense of ownership of it too. So they were also usually like the highest earners on Cameo and music are the artists who aren't like second guessing it. They're the ones who are like,
Mm-hmm.
this is rad. I love making my fans scream and cry. I love making serious money. I love doing it from the safety of my backyard. I'm going to rep this. And the more they lean in, the more the fans respond, the more we respond and support them, right? Like, so then we'll step up our efforts to help promo, help get press. Like, good example would be like Mark McGrath, like he was from Sugar Ray. He was like a little, weary at first, or a little, let me take this slow, see what's up. And as is typically the case, like he didn't, kind of underappreciated how just fun and easy and chill it is. So the minute he did and he started making a lot of money, the more we started, blasting about him on our socials, putting him in our mailing list. I'm featuring him wherever we can in like digital campaigns and stuff like that. And then, next thing you know, he's kind of front and center, positioned really well on the marketplace. And then he actually has, the kind of stage is set for him to have a viral moment, which he did. And he having nothing to do with us, but he ended up, I don't know if you saw this, your listeners saw it, but a lot of for fans out there, their first introduction to Cameo is one of these viral moments, and his came when he helped a girl break up with her boyfriend on Cameo. So the request was super simple, and he's always pleasing his fans, and he didn't think twice, and he made this really sort of heartfelt cameo for her, like, or for her boyfriend, like, hey, look, it's there's no easy way for me to say this, but I think this relationship has run its course. And he goes to bed, wakes up, and he's covered by 800 media outlets around the world. He's the number one trending topic in the world. So it was really magical, and then we of course could then follow up with that and give it more oxygen. Then we kind of activate our PR engine and our marketing teams and build off it. But yeah.
So Matt, you're head of music partnerships. We mentioned that at the top, but is that what you end up doing? Are you kind of reacting to what's organically happening and then amplifying it, or do you also have a role in recruiting artists and celebrities into the mix?
Yeah.
What is your role?
Yeah, all the above. I mean, it's in the early days when there were just maybe a dozen of us, I basically volunteered to take everything within the music vertical on. And so a lot of that was sitting down with managers, sitting down with labels, marketing teams, publicists, helping to educate them, and pitch Cameo a ton, and a lot of, obviously, to a lot of artists. And yeah, so I mean, everybody at the company, so there's 165 of us right now, regardless of your roles. Certainly there's always that like cog spinning on talent acquisition, because that is, that's obviously our true north. We want more, always more talent to join, so we can have get them off to a great start, make sure they have a great experience, and make their fans happy, and then make them happy. And I'm always thinking about talent that I would love to see, and always there to help facilitate or just help support any artists who want to come on. Or more often than not, that includes now, especially for bigger name talent, helping tailor their rollout around what they have going on. So maybe it's not just coming on Cameo casually. Maybe it's more, all right, let's build let's ramp up a countdown to it. Let's tie it into your album release. That's what we did with Jordan Sparks and Avenue Beat, for example, where they branded their entire rollout on Cameo and their launch on Cameo around their release. And we were able to drive streams for them, and one hand wash the other, and it was like really cool synergy. And I was personally super proud of that. So yeah, so I'd say probably half my time is spent in conversations that involve talent acquisition in one form or another, and the rest of my time is spent in bigger partnership conversations, with some of which are crazy ambitious and abstract, and some of them are smaller. It could be a small like charity partnership that I'm working on, which at any time I may have like 10 of those in various states, and then of course my big like pie in the sky partnerships with like the biggest tech companies and music companies in the world.
Yeah, cool. So let's get into your background a little bit. You mentioned your emo roots. Tell our audience who doesn't know what your background is, because you obviously have been in the music space before Cameo.
Yeah, so I started a band in Chicago called Kill Hannah, without knowing. I mean, emo was not a word as far as I know back then, but it was like, my heroes were Smashing Pumpkins, The Cure, The Smiths, ton of English bands, and we started in Chicago, which was a rough place to start a band that wanted to do something like that. And we paid our dues every day, and we were unsigned for I did the math the other day, and it was 10 years from the day I like determined that this was my my life and my my dream to the day, to the year that we signed with Atlantic Records in 2003. So yeah, we were, wore black and eyeliner and flat ironed our hair and had a pretty distinct image and built up a huge following in Chicago, which is awesome. And along the way, then signed with Atlantic in 2003, and from there, put out another record with Motown, a record with Roadrunner, and basically toured the world and put out records for the next 10 years. And yeah, kind of along the way, I believe, without sounding too like, I don't know, not bragging at all, but I believe we pioneered a lot of these kind of conventions now in terms of like street teams and digital street teams, and how important that is to really, keep that alive and to nourish that fan base directly, without necessarily relying on labels, and keeping that independent spirit. And yeah, that was just it. I mean, I was either on the road or in the studio, and then following that, I actually went to New York. I was in the Spider-Man Broadway show for a year. That's the show with that Bono and the Edge wrote the music for. It was like kind of the pariahs of Broadway for a year, and got to live in. That was actually an awesome experience for me. Got to live in New York City for another few years, and then I got into music management, and that led me here. And yeah, it's a cool journey. It's something that I took a minute to figure out, but it's literally, I feel like Cameo right now is my second band. I think for any artist, not just musicians, but any artist in general, where their identity is so tied to their art, that when it comes time to pivot from that, it's very fucking painful, and it's very disorienting, and it takes a minute. And I think from there's this belief that, all right, I'll do something else because I have to, but it's a huge compromise to my heart and my soul, and this feels wrong, and for me, lucky enough, like after figuring that out and kind of wrestling with that existentially, I got to a place just in time for this gig where literally my head and heart are kind of in the exact same place right now, getting Cameo out there in the world as it was back in the day, getting the band known. Because it's still the same hustle. It's still the same fight. Like, it's still, I feel like it's something that makes the world a better place, and maybe more so than my band ever made the world a better place. But it was always my higher purpose. It didn't always feel super selfish. It felt like I wanted to do something significant and relevant and cool, and apply the strengths that I acquired from all those years slugging it out as an artist. So that's where I am right now, and that's why it's like particularly fun and cool for me to talk to people like you about it, because trust me, 2 years ago when I started at Cameo, it was a very different story. It was like people thought we were crazy. It was very hard to to get meetings. We'd sit in conference rooms at the big agencies or management companies, and they would just run down the reasons why it'll never work, why their artists would never consider something like this. And so yeah, it's different dynamic now, and a very different I think the world itself culturally kind of arrived at a place that makes it a lot more receptive to companies like ours, which is a really cool.
Well, you're like fitting in a different way, like there's this traditional music industry, and there's these kind of traditional paths of fan interaction and fan and monetization and all this stuff. And you're like, and then there's this kind of organic, the social media stuff that just sort of kind of existed without a real path to revenue. And you kind of like, Cameo sort of weaves between those worlds and creates a new way of interacting, a new transaction.
Yeah, and I think any new transaction is met with skepticism and met with like resistance, because even just the word is kind of nasty. It's like stigmatized. And I remember how I relate to this, or how it feels just so familiar to me, is that there were days on the road when I remember charging fans for a meet and greet was crazy. I remember we're on the road with 30 Seconds to Mars, and they were it was the first time ever that I saw them charge fans who already paid for tickets to show, like already bought merch. Now, if you want a picture with them, you got to pay another $10 or whatever it was. And I was like, this is ludicrous. Like, this is 4-alarm fire insane. Right. And then cut to a year later and it's just business as usual. It's just
standard
status
practice.
quo. Yeah. And this I've seen evolve, like the sort of acceptance of this and the adoption of it along a similar trajectory where it's like never, and then okay, maybe, and then oh yeah, that's just the way it is, of course.
Yeah. It is cool to hear your background story of slogging it out and kind of thinking about, street teams and engagement and all these things in sort of like the traditional record label era, and then being in this role and watching it come to this place and being a part of that too. I'm curious how you see this type of custom video for a fan fitting into the larger story of music careers. I mean, some artists, it's a line item that they send in with their taxes now. It's more than just putting your hat out on the street while you're busking or something like that. It's like real money. And I'm curious how you see this fitting in with other aspects of monetizing fandom, and where this is all going.
Well, interestingly, and it's awesome to say this with complete sincerity, but there's never been pushback from fans. I think especially when there are certain artists whose entire success is in them saying no to stuff, and a lot of that is I think residual from an era where, like, we all, I don't know if the kids even say it these days, but selling out was like suicide back when I was a kid, and is the last thing in the world you'd want your favorite artist to do. But it's just been a sort of steady evolution across the board where fans are savvy enough to recognize that it is a business, and there's really nothing more like prostitute-y about selling, your time is valuable. And if whether your time is spent on the stage and you're paying a ticket, or in the hoodie that you spent 10 years building your brand to the point where a hoodie is worth more with your logo on it. That and I think this is just an extension of all that, where it's counterintuitive, but the fans that I've seen love to support their artists. Like, they just want to know how to support them more. So I don't think they necessarily want to look under the hood and say, like, all right, where does this fit within my entire like cash flow as a human being, and look at like just how bleak it could be, or just how disadvantaged artists have been historically in the music business. Like, I can show you a statement from Atlantic Records right now that shows that I personally still owe them $975,000. So
you better get on Cameo, Matt.
I'm 20.
You got to get that 2 million going.
I'm $25 if any of your listeners are interested. but yeah, so fans, how it fits is very, it's a perfect complement to everything else. If a fan right now goes to their Shopify, or they go there wherever their e-commerce lives, it's like that. But interestingly too, 85% of Cameos are bought as gifts. So it's not even necessarily it's more often than not, it's not the super fan who's taking out their wallet. It's like the husband of the super fan who's looking for that perfect gift. And this is that one thing that his girlfriend doesn't have yet from this artist. So
it is holiday season now. This episode's coming out during holiday season. So
yeah, it's our biggest time of year.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. What other trends are you keeping an eye on in the music tech world, in the direct to fan world? What's I mean, you've been in this for a while. Are you? I mean, we can talk about Cameo, but I'm just curious. Broadening it out. What else is interesting to you?
I mean, I'm still trying to. I'm baffled that there is not a like one-stop solution right now for like fan clubs for artists, and nor for like virtual ticketed events. Like I'm talking to, we're doing some of it. know that a lot of other great companies, some of whom, like, you had obviously at Tectonics,
Mm-hmm.
that I enjoyed meeting and talking to, but across the board, I'm surprised that, and very interested in why it's so fractured. Everyone,
Yeah.
the managers and artists alike are a little bit, they don't know where to turn, and I think that needs to change. So I'm paying a lot of attention to that.
It is interesting because we've watched the industry go to a platformization of things. It went from a very record label oriented industry, the recording industry, to a very platform oriented one with companies like Spotify and Apple Music, but then also on social media with platforms like Facebook and Instagram, and of course on the video side, YouTube, and then on the live streaming side, Twitch. To where now it is actually fractured. I mean, you look at all the streaming services, you can't really just be on one streaming service on that side of things. So the question is, do artists and managers want their bands to be on a platform, or do they want a bespoke? You kind of have to be a certain size to be. You have to have a big enough fan base and enough demand to own your own fan base platform that people come to, right? Yeah. It's such a dilemma of having a one go-to place versus going to lots of, like, does the fan go to lots of places, or it's a tricky dilemma every time.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen. I can't tell you how many times I let the Kill Hannah domain lapse because I was like, what's the point? I'm like, oh God, $10 every 3 months. Like, I don't know if this is worth it, honestly. But yeah, if you're that top tier talent, for sure. I mean, I think you build the world, and then your fans can come to that world. But you'll never be as adept as the specialists. You'll never. You just don't have the capacity to crush on all fronts at the same time. So I mean the Goldilocks sort of overlap is in, all right, I think I'm okay to send my fans to a few places, but every one of them is going to be airtight baller, and every single one of them I'm going to be almost like I'll be prioritized over there, and I'll be well taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then with the live streaming or the virtual tickets you mentioned, that's another one where it would be very tricky to see a singular place, just because I think through the live music side of the business, people kind of did not love the idea of a handful of companies kind of controlling what the economics of tickets are, right?
Yeah, I have a hunch. I mean, I have a hunch where, I mean, you probably know far better than I, but I have a hunch for what's gonna happen kind of soon on that front, and I think it will be. Yeah, I think it'll be a good solution in the interim, but then it's gonna be. Yeah, there'll be.
Wait, are you gonna say more? Wait, I want to know your hunch.
Well, I mean, my hunch is that a very familiar big name will just come out and, like, throw down, just come into the room, own it. And kind of take over, and then possibly, to your point, like probably get in some antitrust problems, and then yes, there'll be like a phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. That's my hunch. But
wow, well, it'll be interesting to see if it's possible, because I mean, I think the reason that worked on the ticketing side had a lot to do with consolidation on the real estate front, and some of the deal making on the promotion side of concerts. I don't know if that's going to happen on the live streaming side, if that's what you mean, because there's so many platforms now, and there's still, and they offer different things. There's kind of a variety of differentiators. Of course, at some point we may find out that it's really only one small set of features that people want or that work financially.
I think it means more to the artist that it just be reliable.
Yeah. Reliable and turnkey.
Yeah.
Are there any other specific music tech trends or companies you're excited about?
My dudes, I don't know if you've had Benji or Joel Madden from Good Charlotte on.
No, they came to the first Music Tectonics conference, but their company Veeps, is that the one you mean?
Yeah. I love what they're doing. I mean, I think I watched that grow from zero, and it was just so cool to see it. It's just paying really close attention to what their specific lane of artists are doing and what's important to them and those fans, and then just proving that concept and scaling up from there. And just along the way, like, I obviously relate to them because we're all artists, but they're also homies, and they've just been doing it right. And it's just so cool to see, for example, like with SMS texting, like that they've got whatever, I mean, it's like a 99.8% open rate of the text that their artists send to their fans, and that they can be super targeted when they're on the road. Like, I just want to reach out to and arrange something super VIP for our fans in Dallas next week, and they kind of choose from the menu and make it, to your point, like bespoke to what matters most to that artist. And yeah, it's just it seems to be, it just makes a lot of other, I don't know, it just makes a lot of other tools for artists like that feel kind of obsolete. So I love seeing that. I like seeing good guys win, and definitely love what they're up to.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking this dive with us, not only into what Cameo is and some of the cool stories out of that, but also playing the Music Tectonics game of what other cool stuff should be watching out for. It's been fun to dig in with you. Do you have any last shout outs before we wrap up, Matt?
No.
Besides your $25 cameos?
I'm just really glad we got to talk again, because that was that was such a funny nightmare scenario because we make it a point to, like, all right, troubleshoot, get there ahead of time, run the tech, and literally I almost had to laugh because it felt like the universe, like, your best efforts, you guys were as gracious and as cool and as can be, and literally it was like, I don't know what version of what OS I had that was just not getting along with whatever, some tiny, I just know it was just some crazy, like, tiny obscure little line of code that was making it hard. But I was more just, I get FOMO, and I was like, I want to be in the fucking,
yes, that's all I want. Yeah. That's all I want is FOMO.
For someone who has FOMO, it's like the worst torture to be like, okay, hang out outside of this party, and we'll talk about you, but you can hear it, but you can't get in. I'm like, oh. So I was really happy to have a chance to just, like, chat with you now one-on-one. And I feel like, obviously it was a good idea, and definitely stoked to chat again.
Yeah, cool, man. Matt, thanks so much for being on here. We'll get you going at another Music Tectonics event. Obviously, we do the conference every year, but we do a lot of other online stuff, and I'm sure the podcast listening community would be glad to meet up with you at one of our online meetups. So thanks again, man. Stay safe out there, and appreciate you being on the podcast.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much.
And thank you for listening to the Music Tectonics podcast. It's funny that Matt just mentioned FOMO, because if you did miss the Music Tectonics conference, we are putting the videos in the Music Tectonics app. And as an incentive for you to join in the Music Tectonics conference in 2021, if you sign up to get access to the videos, you actually get a voucher for admission to the 2021 conference. And the reason it's kind of funny is because the URL to get there is pages.musictectonics.com/no-FOMO, because FOMO is what it's all about, and the only reason to check out the videos is because you missed a lot of really amazing stuff. pages.musictectonics.com/no-FOMO. You can also just join the Music Tectonics app. It's a community app for music innovators. It's in the iOS App Store. It's in Google Play, and of course you can sign up for our newsletter at musictectonics.com. Thanks for listening. More episodes coming soon.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.